In 2023 I started my gaming backlog journey, and in this video I'm going to be ranking all the games I finished and checked off the backlog in that year. If you don't know what a gaming backlog is, it's just a collection of games you want to play but haven't gotten to yet, and I have a lot of them. The first game I finished in 2023 was Elden Ring. I'm not going to go into too much detail on any games from the Souls series in this ranking, as I've already made multiple videos sharing my thoughts on them. But Elden Ring is my favourite game of all time and the most I've enjoyed playing a game. It's also the reason I even started playing games again and eventually starting this channel, so it's going in God tier. Sons of the Forest was a sequel to The Forest, which is a game I really loved a few years back, so I had been eagerly awaiting the release of this game for a while, and once I finally got my hands on it, I was a bit disappointed. I enjoyed the game a fair bit, but it had many flaws that the first game didn't suffer from. I think they attempted to go too grand with Sons of the Forest with its huge map, but it really backfired, as even now recording this video, where the game has released out of early access, the map is way too empty for its size. Sons of the Forest can be a lot of fun with friends, but can also get very boring, which is why I'm going to put in the C tier. Dark Souls 1 is a fantastic game that suffers a bit from its second half, which pales in comparison to the first, but it's an incredible game overall, landing it in the S tier. Breath of the Wild was my first Zelda game, and it was a great starting point to get me invested in the series. It was super beginner friendly, and I needed basically no prior knowledge of Zelda to understand it, which is mostly because of the story being somewhat lacking. But the open world and exploration of this game is where it shines. Playing this game after Elden Ring, it was pretty obvious where From Software got a lot of their inspiration from when crafting their open world. At no point in this game was I disappointed while exploring, and each journey across its open world felt fulfilling. I hear many complaints about the weapon durability, but I thought it was a perfect fit for this game. The Divine Beast and Shrines are great and all have interesting puzzles that can be solved in many ways. The boss variety was a little weak, but I don't think any of the bosses were bad whatsoever. They just could have done with a bit more variety. Breath of the Wild is some of the most freedom and fun I've experienced in a game, and for that reason I have to give it God tier. Dark Souls 2 gets shit on a lot, but I still love the game. I firmly believe a lot of the backlash comes from Skull of the First Sin Edition, which completely fucked the enemy placements. Although in saying that, the base game version still has many problems. Dark Souls 2 is on the weaker end of the Souls games, but it's still great nonetheless, and is going in A tier. Dark Souls 3 was the perfect send-off for the trilogy and just did everything to the utmost excellence. It's a blast from start to finish with extremely memorable bosses, and it's going in God tier. Fallout 4 was my favourite game growing up. Its open world just felt so magical to explore, and I loved the quests and base building elements. Fallout 3 shares a lot of the greatness from 4, but I don't think it was quite as good. It's a great game and I don't have many negative things to say about it. I just didn't get the same level of enjoyment as I did with 4. I'll put it in the A tier. Outer Wilds is a game I've seen get tons of praise and critical acclaim, and while I think it's a great game which I enjoyed tons from start to finish, I don't think it hit as hard for me as it did for a lot of people. I love the openness of flying your ship to planets, discovering mysteries and answering questions. Each planet is extremely distinct from one another, and the game is filled with originality and passion. A tier is still very high for me, and it is close to S, it just barely didn't make it to the level for me personally. After playing Breath of the Wild and loving it to death, I decided to try the Link's Awakening remake, and it didn't disappoint. I really liked the 2D style and small scale of this game. Not every game has to be as grand as Breath of the Wild, these smaller, more simple games are also a welcomed experience that I really enjoy. The dungeons in this game are challenging to piece together and a lot of fun to go through. The story is also really good and immersive. The art style is incredible and I'd love to see more 2D Zeldas remade with it. Ranking Link's Awakening, I'd give it a solid S tier. Pokemon Legends Arceus is easily the best Pokemon game in a while, like a long ass time. But it doesn't come without its flaws, and its flaws are major. Firstly, this game just looks straight up like ass. And you can't blame the Switch for that reason when you got games like Breath of the Wild on the same system which look incredible. The models for the characters are very ugly and the environment looks quite bad also. Pokemon models are pretty good though, which is probably the most important part of a Pokemon game, so at least they got that down. The story is also abysmal to be honest, and I just couldn't care less about any of the characters or the plot they were set in. With my complaints out of the way, believe it or not, I do think this game is quite solid overall, since the gameplay is extremely fun. Catching Pokemon has never been this fun besides Pokemon Go's peak back in 2016. The actual gameplay of this game is great and I had plenty of fun playing it, but because of the bad story and visuals, I can't put it any higher than B tier. Mario 3D World was the first Mario game I played back on the Wii U. And this re-release bundled with the new Bowser's Fury was a lot of fun to revisit a game I played so long ago. And it was funny thinking about how much I struggled on a game that isn't remotely difficult to me today. My thoughts on 3D World remained the same on the second playthrough. It's a great 3D Mario with a good variety of levels and well-structured worlds. Bowser's Fury was a very short and enjoyable game that showcases what an open world Mario could be like. I like the idea of Bowser showing up randomly and certain parts of the levels only being available during this event. 3D World plus Bowser's Fury was just a very well done and solid platformer overall with great visuals, landing it in the A tier. Lethal Company took over the gaming landscape for a solid chunk of 2023. and at one point everyone was playing this game, and for good reason. For a lot of AAA and live service gamers, this was a breath of fresh air. Instead of another insane high-end money grab, it was a small indie horror game driven by passion that is a blast to play with friends. Although the enjoyment of this game is quite short-lived due to the gameplay getting very stale quickly, the main component of this game works really well, just not for an extended period of time. Overall, Lethal Company was a lot of fun for me and my mates for a week or two, but the lack of updates didn't keep us coming back. B tier. The 2D Mario games had gotten very stale in recent years with a lack of innovation, which is what made Super Mario Wonder such a welcome surprise in 2023. The game is visually beautiful with a colourful art style that perfectly fits a Mario game. The level variety was top tier, and the Wonder Flower mechanic took this to the next tier. The Wonder Flowers do such a good job at uniquely altering the levels that you can never predict what one is going to do. I'll put this one in A tier with 3D World, as I think they're pretty similar in quality. The Star Wars series has my favourite movies. Just pretend the sequels don't exist and you have the greatest movie series of all time. Anyway, you take my favourite movies and mix it with my favourite style of game, and we get Fallen Order, which is a very solid take on a Souls-like and a Star Wars story. The combat in Fallen Order is great and can be challenging at times. There's a large pool of moves and skills to learn that keep the combat fresh and entertaining. Story and characters are also pretty solid and boast a very good protagonist and Cal Kestis. Visuals are good besides a few technical problems, and each world stands out from one another in the visual department. The puzzles are a welcome addition, although not very challenging. Fallen Order does a really good job at what it attempts and acts as a solid Souls-like, landing it in the A tier. After finishing Fallen Order, I felt I was ready to tackle Sekiro again, after originally quitting the game at 7 hours in, and this time my experience was completely different. It's sort of like Fallen Order was my tutorial for Sekiro, as it taught me to parry and rely less on dodging for this style of combat. Immediately the combat clicked with me, and I couldn't stop playing Sekiro, and it's an easy god tier. Raft is a survival game well set on a raft, with a fun gameplay loop that it gets repetitive over time. And A Way Out is a short co-op experience that takes you through a story of two characters with an amazing final act, but the rest of the game was pretty mid to be honest. Both are pretty decent C tier games and were fun to play with a friend. Those are all the games I got to in 2023. I know it wasn't many, but I didn't start my backlog till the midpoint of the year. I'll be making another video soon ranking all the games I finished in the first half of 2024, and there'll be a lot more on that list. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and comment what games you played in 2023. Also, if you want more similar content, subscribe and check out the videos on screen now.